You said that people would say that you would run out of guests for your podcast because there's not many women investors. And that's interesting to me. Now I know your scope is all real estate investing, not multifamily specifically. So certainly that narrows it down to scope. I mean, of all real estate investors, like I don't know what percent, 5, 4, 3 are multifamily investors. Like it's a tiny percentage even in the world of real estate investing. But nevertheless, you made another comment about maybe you said maybe women don't talk about themselves as much. But and that's an interesting theory. I haven't thought about it in that way. But you know, in the multifamily space, there are a very small number of women that are active, and the ones that are active, that are very successful, tend not to be vocal. They tend not to be influencers. They're quietly doing their thing, 1,000 units, 2,000 units.
Yeah.
They're not writing a book. They don't have a podcast, you know, whatever. There are exceptions to that rule. But if you look at a percentage, that seems to be the case a little bit. So I'd love to hear your theory about, you know, is it true that there are not as many women, you know, multifamily commercial real estate investors, and do they in fact promote them or talk about themselves less than maybe men do?
Yeah, it's funny because I think there is, you know, I cannot, I certainly am not an expert in women. Like I can only speak from my own experience and the women that I talk to. But I think it's interesting because I think, you know, I was talking to a woman as a general contractor, very successful general contractor in Chicago. She runs one of our meetups, and it is almost like, you know, she'd never done a deal. When I was having this conversation with her, I'm like, you literally know, like, and that's not unique. That's not uncommon. You know, I think somewhere along the way, I think it has. I mean, again, there's probably a lot smarter people than me to go over this, but I think somewhere along the way, Michael, and there's actually a lot of research, I think, when it comes to college and like people getting their MBAs and who raises their hand first and who gets called on first, right? So there's a lot of these different things, I think, in society that, you know, almost like, you know, it's like a woman boss. She's not being assertive, she's being a bitch, right? It's excuse me if I'm not supposed to say that on, on your podcast, but it's that same type of like, is it being assertive or is it being just like nasty? Well, you know, would you say that same thing to I think there's a lot of different societal conditioning that happens over time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think somewhere along the way, women are nurturers, right? And there are men who are nurturers, but generally speaking, right, there's that nurturing quality. I'm very nurturing, but then you want to speak up and you're like, I got something to say here. I want to speak up. And it's like, so, you know, I think there are a lot of women who do undersell themselves. There are a lot more women, I think, in multifamily than we realize. I've interviewed a lot of them. And these are successful ladies, you know, they really are. They are under the radar. So, you know, I'm not sure what the solution is, but I think highlighting their journeys, right? And highlighting their journeys for other women to see and for them to get the accolades and lifting each other up, I think is really what we're, you know, if you will, in the community to do.
Yeah, I think that is the solution. I think you're right. I think fundamentally there's a lack of role models. You said earlier, you know, sometimes women need permission to do something, but I don't think it's just women. I mean, men tend to be a little more assertive, possibly, and they don't need to be necessarily, but still, there's plenty of male role models in real estate investing, plenty, right? And I think my observation is that there's not many female role models, as well as, by the way, minority role models as well. Why aren't there more minorities? Well, I think it's the same exact thing. It's not that they're incapable of doing it, or they grow up poor, or grow up rich, or grow up this way. I don't think it's at all. I think there's a lack of role models. And so I think, you know, I think my call is, and this is why I'm glad I learned about you from Matt. I'm like, how you keep Liz a secret? You know, she's out there doing a bunch of stuff. I think we need more people like you to shine the light on women real estate investors, because like you said, they are out there, but they're not talking about themselves. But I think it's a shame, because if anyone has any kind of amount of success, why are you keeping that to yourself, right? Why do that? Why not share that with others? So I think that's what needs to happen. I think more women need to step forward, and, you know, you and I and others need to, you know, have a stage, create a stage for them to be on, and then allow them to be on that. That then in turn attracts more people to the business.
Absolutely. And then you start to see this, like, you know, I say to my daughter a lot. I mean, I have a 4-year-old daughter. So, you know, is she adorable and is she beautiful? Yes. But I'm like, you're strong, you know, you're unstoppable. I tell her she's unstoppable all the time. So she said, if I had to ask her, what word do you hear from your mom the most? I don't say she's like cute or unstoppable. I'd rather her know that she's unstoppable, quite honestly, than she's cute.
Yeah.
She is, but you know what I mean? And I think that, and I'm very conscious of that, right? So I'm conscious, and whoever she wants to be, whatever she loves dresses, she loves dolling up, and I let her be who she is, but I'm going to make sure she knows she's unstoppable versus, just that she's cute, and that's just my small little space in my life that I can maybe help as the next generation, and I was told I can do anything too with my parents. So you just want to keep doing that in your own circles in your own life too.
What's your parting advice to investors who are just starting out, women or otherwise?
I think it's so easy, Michael, and I know people probably see this for you too because of your success and Garrett, your success. People look at something and go, wow, that must have been so easy for them. That must have taken just like, I don't know, overnight success. My parting advice is that there's no overnight success. That doesn't happen. And so my point in saying that is that it takes time, it takes energy, it takes, wow, that didn't work. Wow, we just lost some money here. Like, oh, we're getting sued. Like literally all those things have happened, and a lot of other things. So just stay the course and don't give up, because it's just, for me, it didn't happen overnight, or for us, it didn't happen overnight. There were a lot of tough things that happened. So don't give up. Literally just over grit, like just go above beyond with grit and persistence, and you will do just fine in life. That's my opinion.